Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel, y'all. This is 4 powerful steps to building better boundaries with men. I am so excited to have you here. My name is Matt Shaffer. I'm a transformational speaker and coach for women, and I'm so excited to check in with y'all and do this live. We're gonna have a lot of fun. For all you watching live or watching on the replay, if you haven't yet, take a second, hit that little subscribe button. I'm always uploading new amazing content and you don't wanna miss it. And I will be, I'm actually in the middle of launching an incredible love and relationship course, masteryofconnection.com. If you haven't checked that out yet, it's not too late to be a part of it. I'm going to put a link to it up here, masteryofconnection.com. Boom. Go ahead and check that out. I'm so excited, everybody jumping on live. We got Sensual Brunette, love that name, Ara Filman, Cherie Lindsay. We got lots of great people hopping on. Just so you know, I will be answering questions predominantly at the end of this live, but this is a conversation. So I want you to be welcome to really ask questions, be dynamic with me. I love having a dialogue about this stuff, because is it not true that boundaries are one of the most important and I think underappreciated parts of relationship, right? Am I right? Give me a 1 and ask me your questions around boundaries, whatever's coming up for you around boundaries in your life, and I'll be sure to answer those towards the end of the show. So let's talk about the nature of boundaries, right? Like, why are boundaries so important, right? And so I think one of the first major steps in recognizing the value of boundaries with men, right, is to recognize that men need them, okay? We absolutely need boundaries. I know, and here's the thing, I want to destigmatize boundaries with men, because I think a lot of women have a lot of fear and a lot of resistance around boundaries. Because why? Because they think that if they set boundaries, they're going to be pushing men away. If they set boundaries, they're being masculine, right? If they set boundaries, they're going to be shutting out men and all that stuff. Here's the thing, and I'm here to tell you as a man, men, step 1, the first most important thing for you to realize is that men need boundaries, right? Boundaries are the container that men can operate within. Boundaries provide men with a roadmap to your happiness. Because here's the thing, think about the nature of men, okay? Men, we operate by facts. We operate through steps. We love to be within a system and a structure. Men do, in general, right? So when you set boundaries with a man, or especially around what it is that you like, you're helping him understand how to make you happy, which he is going to appreciate. So don't feel self-conscious or guilty around the fact that you want to set boundaries with him. Are you with me? This is super, 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 super important. Like, boundaries are a blessing for everybody, okay? So let's be clear about that. Boundaries are a blessing for everyone. And so men are craving boundaries. They are craving structure. They want to know how to make you happy. Nothing is more exhausting or more frustrating for a man than to trip over boundaries that he didn't know existed and have you be reactive to him, right? Or have you take it out on him. So recognize that, by you setting positive, loving, constructive boundaries with a man, you are making him happy. You are giving him a framework to operate within. And it's very important to realize, in conjunction with this, that all men, almost all men, are going to push. They're going to see where the boundaries are at. This includes good men, right? This includes all men. Men are going to see where the boundaries are at. They're going to see where the boundaries are at physically. They're going to see where the boundaries are at. They're going to be looking for boundaries. They're going to push a little bit, okay? So don't think that just because a man tests you to see if you have boundaries, just if a man, maybe gets excited and physically tries to advance the stage of the relationship that y'all are in, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad guy, okay? So be conscious that just because a man pushes and sees where your boundaries are at, it doesn't necessarily say anything about his character, okay? So all men, are looking for boundaries in one way or another, and it's your responsibility as a woman to be the conductor of the symphony, right? I talk a lot about being a conductor of the heart. right? You as the woman are the conductor of the heart, and it is up to you to set the tempo of the emotional and the communicative aspects of the relation. Be the conductor, and a conductor sets the tempo, right? So you have so that's in the tempo of relationship, is going to be set by you, because the man, he's the driving force, he's the pushing force, he's going to be trying to move things forward, because that's what men do. And you get to set the tempo and guide him forward and keep the pace of the relationship in a way that honors your value, honors your worth. Are you with me? Give me a 1 if you can relate to that. What's up, everybody joining live? We got over 50 people watching. I absolutely love that. So step 1, right, if we're talking about 4 steps in setting healthy boundaries, the first step is to don't be self-conscious about boundaries because you think that men don't need that. Because step 1 is that men need boundaries. We're craving boundaries. And by you honoring that need and drive and giving us that structure, you're doing them a deep blessing and a deep favor. Okay, whatever is lovely says only real men are okay with boundaries. Exactly. And we're going to get to that one in a later step. What happens if someone doesn't respect your boundaries? Okay, so we're going to get there, but first off, let's talk a little bit about this. So again, let go of all your self-consciousness around setting boundaries with a man. He is looking for them consciously or unconsciously. And if you're in a relationship where your boundaries aren't being honored, the first thing you get to look at and ask yourself is, have I taken the time to really stand in my power and express them to a man? Have I set boundaries? Or am I resentful of this person and not happy with my partner when he doesn't even know what my boundaries are, right? Let's take responsibility for the impact we have in the relationship, right? A man is not going to know your boundaries unless you communicate them to him. Are you with me? Super, super, super important. So step 2, and a very important step in being able to set healthy boundaries with a man, is that in order to set healthy boundaries, you need to recognize and honor your value and worth. Right? So this is super important, because your values get to be grounded in your honor and in your. They need to be grounded in your value. They need to be grounded in your worth. They need to be grounded in your understanding of the type of relationship that you are worthy of. So how do you understand how valuable you are? Because I think one of the biggest things that stops women from setting boundaries in relationship is what's one of the biggest things that women do? They're scared of a man leaving. So they allow him to walk all over them. Exactly, Cindy's with us here, right? Women are afraid of losing a man. They have massive self-worth issues around relationship, and so they just operate as doormats in relationship. And so Sensual Burnett is asking, can we have examples of boundaries? And yes, we're going to get to that in just a second. We're going to get to the types of boundaries you want to establish with a man in just a second. This is just all the context setting, right? The 2 context things that we get to really ground in are A, that men need boundaries, and B, that you are worthy of having boundaries. Okay, we get to create a container where a man knows how to treat you. We train others how to treat us. Are you with me here? Yeah. So once you recognize that you're worthy of boundaries and you recognize your value, that you are a high value woman who is worthy of being treated with dignity and respect, right? And if you're having a lot of resistance around that, if you have a lot of resistance around setting boundaries in relationship, look at those worthiness conversations. Look at those beliefs. Look at what's underneath that. Ask yourself, why am I afraid to tell a man what I need? Why am I afraid to tell a man no? Why am I afraid to ask for what I need to be happy? Right? What am I afraid is going to happen? Am I afraid that I won't be able to find another man? Am I afraid he's going to leave? And what's that based in? We really get to the root. We get to the root of what our fears are around setting boundaries, and we get to look at that. Exactly, my cats are French fries. We train others how to treat us. We really do train others how to treat us, and that is not a derogatory term. Cindy asks, I don't know how to communicate boundaries. Okay, we're gonna get to that too, Cindy. We're gonna get to how to communicate boundaries in just a second. But first off, you get to understand men need boundaries, and you're worthy of setting them. You're worthy of being treated in a way that makes you happy, okay? And now let's take a look at, right? Let's look at what type of boundaries do we need to set in relationship? What do you think? As I deliver this, I'd love for you to share with me in the comments, what do you think are the most important types of boundaries to set? First off, clearly, obviously, we need to set physical boundaries in relationship, right? We get to be clear on what type of physical, step we're in our relationship. What relationship do we have between the physical connection with a man and commitment? Like, are you someone who truly needs to be in a committed, exclusive relationship before sex? Is that something that's important to you, right? So we get to look at our vision for relationship and our values and what we feel good about, right? And really get to the bottom of, how do we want to be treated, and what sort of physical boundaries do we have around relationship? And then how do we want to be treated emotionally, right? Communicatively. How do we want to be talked to? How do we want to feel in these situations? Like, we get to look at that and we get to ask ourselves, what are the boundaries that you get to create these boundaries for yourself before you communicate them to a man. So what would be some examples of physical boundaries in relationship, right? It would be like, I'm not comfortable, right, being sexually intimate with a man until we're in an exclusive monogamous relationship. Boom, there you go. That's an example of a boundary that you create within yourself. Now, how you express that to him can be done in a different way. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in just a second. So, I'm going to be physically intimate with a man until when we're in a committed, exclusive relationship, right? What would be an example of an emotional boundary? Like, I will only be in relationship with someone who honors my feelings, right, and treats me on a daily basis with dignity and respect, and makes me feel loved and seen and honored. That's an example of a boundary. And again, we're setting these boundaries within ourselves before we express them to men. Dee Dee says, stop jiggling my thighs. That's one type of physical boundary to set. Okay, so whatever is lovely says, I need to hear from the person I am with every day. Okay, so consistency of communication is important. So that's another great area to establish boundaries in terms of communication. How do you want to be talked to? With what frequency do you want to be talked to? These are important things to think about. Hi, Sheena. Good to see you too, my dear. Amanda says, no sex in the car. There you go. That's a type of physical boundary. But again, we don't want to express it that way. Okay, so just to look at the three major types of boundaries that we want to set. We want to set, obviously, physical boundaries. We want to set physical boundaries. We want to set emotional boundaries. We want to set communicative boundaries on how we want to be talked to with ourselves. And then another area to set boundaries is materially, right? In terms of sharing stuff. What is your relationship with other people, and how do you want, do you want him to be able to borrow your car? Do you live with him? What about all of your stuff, right? This is all important. You want to identify for you, because I can't tell you where it's important for you to set boundaries in your relationships, but you need to look at the spectrum of your life and ask yourself, where do I want to establish boundaries with men in my life? Are you with me? And we address this in my course, by the way, guys, masteryofconnection.com. You can sign up for my course. We just got started this week. It's super cool, and you get to join for free as a member of my community. So take a second at some point throughout this broadcast or afterwards and head over to masteryofconnection.com. I have an amazing course that's all around how you connect with other people, and we explore boundaries and all the different aspects of how to be in meaningful relationship, not just with men, but with all people in your life. So it's a really, really cool course, and I guarantee you will get a ton out of it. Okay, so check that out. And so let's look at, right? So now the first step, obviously, once you recognize that men need boundaries and you're worthy of boundaries, and you've looked at the beliefs that might be underneath your unwillingness to, establish boundaries, is that the next thing you want to do is you want to establish those boundaries within yourself. This is not the phase where you tell him. You want to set your boundaries within yourself first, grounded in what you're worth, grounded in your vision for relationship. What type of relationship do you want to have with men? How do you want to feel in relationship with men, right? What do you want to experience? That's so important for you to be connected to, because when you're setting boundaries, you want your boundaries to be in alignment with your vision for relationship, with your dream relationship, with how you want to feel, with what you want to experience in partnership with a man. How would your dream partner talk to you? How would he experience you? How would he make you feel? Would he make you a priority? Are you with me? This is so important, right? And so once you establish these boundaries within yourself, then the next phase is just as important. The next phase is, how do you communicate boundaries to a man? How do you communicate all these things? Because here's the thing, you do not want to say, no sex until I get a ring, and I don't like that, and don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do that. Why do you think that would be a bad way to express boundaries to a man? Why do you think continually just telling him, don't touch this, don't do that, can't do that yet, stop doing that, I don't like that? Why do you think a man wouldn't like that? If that's the way you're continually communicating to him around boundaries. It's pretty obvious, right? We don't want to be in a continual space of reprimanding a man, right? Because if we do that, if all of our boundaries are set as negative, like restrictive, can't do this, don't do this, we run the risk of activating his mama trauma. Okay, and mama trauma is something I talk about a lot. Yes, Lenore, it's very masculine, and it's going to make him shut down. It's going to make him feel like he's wrong. And he's being wrong for being a man. Yeah, whatever his lovely says sounds like you're mothering. Exactly. All men at some level are little boys. All men have a little boy within ourselves. And if you become a reprimanding female force in his life all the time, telling him what he's not allowed to do and what he can't do and what he shouldn't be doing and what he needs to stop doing, he's going to start, that little boy within him is going to start seeing you as his mother, and you're going to start triggering his mama trauma. Is that where you want to be? No, because that is not going to create the polarized, magnetic sort of dynamic with a man. Heather says, that's how I treat my kids. Exactly. You don't want to treat your man like your kids. You don't, right? Like, you get to be really conscious. So I encourage my clients, and this works really well, to set positive, constructive, inviting boundaries with a man. Guide him into doing what you want by giving him positive feeling statement invitations to act in a way that is in alignment with your vision, right? Be inviting with him in a positive way. Like, say, for example, you need daily communication. Rather than telling a man, you don't text me enough. I don't like, you don't text me enough. I don't feel like I hear from you enough. You need to text me every day. Say to him, it makes me feel so good when I hear from you during the day. It brightens my day, and I would love to have more bright days. Would you like to text more? It'd be so much fun. You see what I'm saying? So right there, instead of making him feel like he was a bad boy for not texting you enough, now Tris says I should patent that term, mama trauma. I agree, Tris. I gotta get the paperwork in on that because nobody else. I came up with it myself. Nobody else is using it. But so you see what I'm saying? As a man, if a woman tells me, work gets so monotonous, and your texts brighten up my day. Could you give me some text during the, I'd love for you to text me during the day just so we can put a smile on my face, because my job is tough. Then you're really feeling, I get to feel relevant and important, and like I'm making you feel good. And you got to remember, fundamentally, men want to make you happy. If a man likes you or a man is interested in you, one of his greatest drivers and motivators is going to be making you happy. You want him to be operating from an inspired desire to make you happy, not a desire to not make you mad, to avoid making you mad, right? So set positive, constructive boundaries whenever possible. And I'm not saying it's always going to be possible. Sometimes, you're going to have to set hard line, stop doing that or don't do that boundaries. I'm not saying that you're never going to have to do that, but I'm saying that you can probably, a lot more often than you have been in the past, set positive, constructive, inviting boundaries with a man. Remember, y'all, you are a conductor of the heart. A conductor is continually inviting the orchestra, inviting the men, inviting that driving physical force. You get to be continually inviting him forward. So invite him to do what you love. I love, like Amanda says, Amanda's boundary was, I don't like having sex in the car. Valid boundary, Amanda. Very valid. And so one of the ways so how do we frame that as a positive, right? How do we frame that as a positive? We say, I love making love to you in that big, fluffy bed. Let's just wait till we get home so we can do it right. Boom, right there. Now you got him excited about how freaky things are going to get in the sheets rather than trying to, grab a quickie in the, Burger King parking lot or whatever's going on. I don't know, Amanda, you need to, unless maybe it's a fetish of his. Listen, again, everybody, maybe ask him some more questions, right? If that's something he's into, then hear him out on it. Hear why he's into it. I don't know, but it's worth having a conversation around. But you can absolutely set that boundary with him proactively in a loving, inviting way. Does that sound good? Give me a 1 if y'all can relate to that. Christina asks, can we cover online dating and setting boundaries, especially if you have a great connection and he's still flirting with women on the dating app? Oh gosh, Christina. Oh, and I'm going to be answering more questions at the end, so be sure to keep watching. But Christina is asking, so when do we tell the guy you're talking to pull the plug on being on the dating app? So that's an interesting question, right? Because, that comes down to, when do you feel that it's important for y'all to be monogamous, right? That comes down to transitioning from dating into relationship, right? Because up until you two have had a proactive conversation around monogamy, you don't really have a right to tell them to not be on dating apps, okay? And it's important that you don't try to exercise that before you've had the conversation, because I'm telling you, as a man, nothing turns a man off more than feeling like, a woman is being jealous and possessive and insecure about him before they've had that conversation. That is not going to create value in the eyes of a man. And one of the biggest things we do when we create values, when we set boundaries in a healthy way, is we're actually creating value for yourself in the eyes of the men that you're talking about. Amanda asks, am I projecting? Are we talking about, are we going back to the car sex, Amanda? No, we can't. We're not going back to the car sex. But no, so what I'm saying is, like, we really get to operate from this healthy space when it comes to boundaries. And if you want to be exclusive with a man, you get to address that, again, in a positive, proactive, loving, inviting way. So how can we set that boundary that you want to transition from still being on dating apps into only talking to each other exclusively? What would that boundary look like? It's a great question, and I think, if I was having this conversation, right, with somebody that I was dating, if I'm having a conversation around setting and establishing that I don't want her, I'm not going to say, I don't want you on them dating apps talking to those other guys. Like, I'm not going to be like, a possessive overlord about it. I would stay grounded in, I love connecting with you, and I love talking to you, and I'm loving getting to know you so much. And a big part of that for me is feeling safe with you, right? And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to talk to anybody else. I have no desire to talk to anybody else. And I want to feel safe with you, that we're getting to know each other, in a really loving, intimate way. And it would be so exciting for me if we could only talk to each other. You see where I'm coming from? Like, and by me saying by me expressing it in that way, that's gonna hopefully be exciting to her, and it's not feeling like I'm trying to restrict her from other options, but more that I'm looking to move forward and have a healthy, dynamic, loving evolution of relationship with her. Does that make sense? And so the same thing with you, with the men that you're looking to get to know. Let him know how good it feels, how much you love being connected to him, right? And ask him proactively, like, are you feeling this? Are you enjoying this the way that I am? Are you open to just for us to just talk to each other? Ask him that. Ask him in a curious, loving, inquisitive way. Don't say, I see you're still on Tinder. Like, what gangster are you talking to on Tinder? Like, you go that route, and you're not it's not a good look. It's not a good look. It's not a high value look. You don't want to go there, right? You could even bring it up like, so I noticed that you're still on dating apps, like, are you seeing anybody else? And you're coming at this from a space of curiosity. Again, you don't have a right over a guy until you've had the conversation. I'm just telling you this, just point blank, right? Because don't try to impose possessory interests or restrictions on a man until you have had the conversation with him in a loving, proactive, empowered way. Deal? Because I think where a lot of women go wrong is they impose boundaries or restrictions on a man, sort of like unspokenly. They say, well, we've hooked up, therefore, you're my property now, or we've hooked up. But if you haven't told him that was a boundary, if you haven't told him that you don't sleep with men until you're in a relationship, and then you sleep with him, he didn't magically know that boundary when he had sex with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't retroactively enforce a boundary on a guy that you didn't communicate to him up front. All right, so real talk. I'm just being real with you, ladies. Heather's saying, I can see your mama trauma. Oh, Heather, I've worked through my mama trauma, honey, at least most of it. But remember, boundaries don't exist unless you express them. Can we agree on that? I think that's an important point to sort of circle back on. Boundaries don't exist unless you own them, unless you express them, and you're going to have a lot better chance of landing boundaries with a man and maintaining polarity with him if you set those boundaries in a positive, inviting, loving way whenever possible, right? And here's the thing, sometimes you're going to need to be more direct with a guy. Start the positive, encouraging way first, and then if a man doesn't respond to that, or he's not respecting that, or whatever it is, then that's an opportunity for you to stand in your power and be more direct with him and say, say for example, you say, I love getting to know you, and I love kissing you, and I love touching you, but I'm not gonna, I only want to, and I'm really looking forward to having sex with you, but I'm not going to be comfortable doing it until we're in until we're in an exclusive relationship. Like I want to be able to feel safe with you before we're fully physically intimate. Like that's a loving, understandable, well-expressed boundary. And then if he keeps, going for the glory at that point, like he keeps just like trying to, slide into home plate, whatever, then you get to be like, you know what? I really, it's important for me that you respect my needs in relationship, and I've expressed this to you, and so are you able to respect me on this? Ask him again, but be more direct. You want to keep redirecting him back to that, if that makes sense, and do this, but make them positive and constructive as much as possible. Save the no, stop it, don't do that pretty much as a last resort whenever possible. And that sort of leads us to another I just got to say, you always look like a wise surfer dude. Thanks, Sean. I'll take it. Spent 7 years in California. So this is one of the other most important parts about boundaries. The only way that boundaries matter is if a man understands that you value yourself enough that you'll walk. That you'll prioritize yourself and your boundaries over him. Does that make sense? Like, this is super important. I'm going to put it up on the screen so that you can see it. You get to be willing to walk away if he can't meet your boundaries. If he can't honor you there, it's very important that he understands that there are consequences. And again, this isn't about you beating him over the head with consequences, but this is about him understanding from the way that you've showed up in relationship with him that you honor and love yourself and your needs more than him. Because what does that demonstrate? That demonstrates that you are connected to your value and that you have made yourself your first priority. It is so important that you are your first priority. Are you committed to doing that? I'm going to be answering questions here in just a second, ladies. So by the way, don't go anywhere. I am definitely going to answer questions here in just a minute. I just want to get through this content with you in a powerful way. But if a man doesn't think that you're willing to walk, if he doesn't respect your boundaries, a lot of men are not going to honor those boundaries. You see what I'm saying? So Amanda says, cross my boundaries and die. Maybe not that hardcore, but you got to be willing to walk if a man doesn't respect your boundaries, right? And so if you set loving boundaries and he's not able to honor them, and then you're more firm with that boundary and he still doesn't honor it, then you get to let him know, hey, I'm sorry, but if you're not able to honor my boundary here, I'm not going to be in relationship with you. I'm not going to date you. And you got to mean that. You got to be willing to walk. Am I right or am I right? Sean gets it. Sean, only other guy in the room. He gets it. Elizabeth says, I have boundaries for everything, and that works for me. Yeah. And now Lepozo says, if he asks for a relationship just to sleep with you, that's a fear for me. Fair enough. That's fair. That's a fair fear. I get it, right? And so that's when you're really going to get to practice discernment. You get to practice discernment with the men that you're dating and not get into relationship with men who are going to manipulate you to sleep with you. And again, this will come with practice, and this will come with with framework. But at the same time, like, you also can't operate in the world, oh, this guy's only wanting to be in relationship with me so that he can sleep with me. Because if you start operating with that presumption, if you start operating with the presumption that all men are out to get you and all men are trying to manipulate you to get into your pants, which, by the way, it isn't true. It isn't true. And it's important that you stay open to connecting with men and you operate with a presumption that at the end of the day, you trust yourself, you trust your discernment, and you trust that there are men out there who are open to connecting with you in a loving, meaningful way. Because there are, particularly if you own your value on the way in. Because here's the thing, a lot of men, if you're in full ownership of your value, and you're setting powerful boundaries that are grounded in your vision for the kind of relationship that you know and you believe deep in your heart that you're worthy of, these trifling, manipulative, shitty guys, they're not even going to be able to step to you. Are you with me? Like guys, weak, manipulative, wounded men, which, by the way, that's like an important reframe that I want you to make. These sketchy, guys that are just fuck boys or whatever else, guys that are just trying to get whatever they're trying to get out there. These guys aren't evil men. They're wounded men. There are a lot of wounded men out there. There are a lot of men out there who didn't have healthy fathers. There are a lot of men out there that were not treated well by their mothers. There are a lot of men out there that are traumatized from marriages that they've gone through, experiences they've gone through, and they have a very distorted understanding of what it means to be in a relationship. Not bad people. They're just wounded. They're in pain, And so like a relationship can be such a beautiful container for people to heal if both people come into that container committed to being open, committed to honoring themselves first and the relationship second, and being, firm in our boundaries of who we know ourselves to be and how we want to be treated. And we express that powerfully and lovingly to our partners, and be willing to walk away if not, because, we live in a world of abundance. There's an abundance of people out there that would be blessed to be in a relationship with you, if you say so. You know what I'm saying? We live in the world that we create for ourselves. And I want you to operate from a space that if this person isn't able to honor and love you the way that you're worthy of, that you get to find someone else who can. Truly. And so I want to go through please ask your questions. I want to answer some of your questions around boundaries. I know, I gave you guys some basic content. I know there's a ton of situations and wrinkles that come up around boundaries. Wow, so many amazing comments. Absolutely love it. And if you're looking for an amazing experience, my course, Mastery of Connection, is on. We just started a couple days ago. We do live group coaching twice a week. It's an incredible experience. You can apply at the link there. It's free for everyone in this community. You'll absolutely love it. We have a community of over 1,000 women on Facebook, 4 modules of amazing video content. You get live group coaching from me twice a week where I bring you on camera and I do video coaching with you. It's super fun. So if you're interested in that, go to masteryofconnection.com. I put a link up there and you can sign up, and it's going to be such a blast. It's such a blast. We have 1,000 women in there. We just got off office hours. It was incredible. So let's get some questions. Let's get some questions around boundaries and party with that. Okay, so let's see. Questions about boundaries. I made boundaries about things other than sex and it worked. That's great, Sadie. But have you made boundaries around sex? I know for a lot of women, sex is that one area where women have a lot of resistance setting boundaries, either because they have trauma around physical intimacy, or because maybe they tie their value to sex, right, to physical intimacy, and they think that's all that men want from them. And if they deny them that they're not gonna, be willing to stay with them. That's a huge fear that I know a lot of women have. And I mean, that's honestly for men, one of the most important places for you to have boundaries in place is physical intimacy. Because I'm not saying, I got to be very sensitive in how I address this. I am not saying that a man will always devalue you if you sleep with him early on. I'm not saying that, because sometimes you sleep with a man early on and it evolves into a beautiful, dynamic relationship, okay? But I will say that men have a tendency to categorize women. I'm going to get real with you on this, right? Men have a tendency to categorize women into women that they can sleep with easily and women that they want to date because there's a longer term possibility of relationship. Because a lot of times what men will do, and I'm not saying we do this consciously, but if a woman will sleep with us on the first date or the second date or very early on, we'll say, okay, cool. Well, I really liked her. And then she just gave me the whole enchilada on the second date or the first date. Well, how many other guys has she done that with? We'll project that as an illustration of her value, of her values, and it'll lower her value to us in our eyes, And that doesn't mean, and listen, and I take full responsibility. We pushed you there, like we drove that situation, and we'll still devalue you because of it. And so I know that's not fair, and I know that's ridiculous, but I am saying, like, if you're looking, I'm not saying, that there's any kind of timeline. I also don't believe in hard timelines in terms of when to be physically intimate with a man. I think it's very personal, and I think that boundary gets to be set by you, and rather than having it tied to a timeline, I would have it tied to how you feel, truly. Like how you feel about this person. Do you feel safe with him? Do you feel that there's a possibility for a long-term relationship with him? You know what I'm saying? Like I talk about an experience I had with a woman, where this is a woman who I had been talking to for weeks. I had met her online, and we ended up having a friend in common, and it was just, I was really into her, right? And then on our first date, we had this incredible first date. We hiked a mountain, and she had brought like rum-soaked mangoes, and we're sitting on a blanket under the moon on the top of this mountain eating rum-soaked mangoes and making out. First date, right? Had great dinner, Thai food, whatever. And then she just went for the crotch. She just like did a crotch grab on me on the first date. Like she took the initiative and went there with me. And I was upset, if that makes sense. I said in a video that I did on this that she sort of went for the breadbasket, which a lot of women found to be highly entertaining. We'll see if you guys do, but she went for the breadbasket on me, and I was like upset. I was kind of upset, not because I'm a prude or anything, but because I wanted to experience the courtship with her. I wanted to have a whole, journey with her to that physical intimacy. I didn't want to get it all at once, right? And so, don't assume that every guy just wants that right off the bat. Like allow yourself to experience the situation and let it unfold organically for you, right? Don't assume that every man wants that on the first or second date. So that's just a personal experience from my own life. Okay, so Amanda says how to deal with the discomfort when setting boundaries. The new behavior feels so painful, and do men feel rejected when you set boundaries? Okay, so we'll deal with these one at a time, right? So how to deal with the discomfort when setting boundaries. I think we get to deal with the discomfort because we get to look at, first off, where is that discomfort coming from? Your discomfort around setting boundaries comes from fear. So look at, what is that fear? Like, because fear and shame grow in the dark. Fear and shame grow when you don't, when they're not acknowledged or recognized. So are you afraid, are you uncomfortable setting that boundary because you're afraid that you'll be pushing away a man, because you're afraid that, the man will leave? So do you have a fear of abandonment? Do you have a scarcity conversation around men where you fear that man you're going to lose that man and there's no other men out there? Because, and then talk yourself through that fear, because the fear of abandonment, oh, well, if I set this boundary, he's going to leave, right? The answer to that is, okay, great. And if he leaves, that's perfect, because if he's not able to honor that boundary that I need to be happy and comfortable, then he wasn't the man for me anyway, and his leaving is a blessing. You see what I'm saying? And if your fear is that, oh, I'm going to lose him and I'm not going to find anybody else, you get to reconnect with the fact that there is a vast spectrum of men available to any of you, right? And just because one leaves, it doesn't mean that there aren't another 10 waiting to take his place that will be reflections of who you know yourself to be. Every relationship is a mirror for you. Are you with me? Right? So you want your relationship to mirror your commitment to your own worth and your own value, which you set and establish using boundaries. Elizabeth says boundaries are rewarding. A much better life is waiting for you on the other side of them. Yeah, I'm going to go so far as to say that there is no greater act of self-love than setting boundaries, both with men and with other people in your life, and that you can do it in a loving, feminine, inviting way that does not, alienate good men for you. So, because Hanan asked a question here that I want to address. Do men feel rejected when you set boundaries? Do they feel like you don't really want them for them, and you just think about what you want? Okay, so do men feel rejected when you set boundaries with them? Some men, in the moment, especially if it's a physical boundary around, like things are in the heat of the moment and you two are getting hot and heavy or whatever, a guy might feel a little egoically, wounded in the moment. Or to quote another term, he might get a little butthurt if you tell him, I'm not comfortable with that yet, or let's hold off, let's chill on that, right? But that's okay, right? What's important is that after he has that little ego hit, how does he respond, right? How does he respond next? Because a man who is grounded in his own value and who honors and sees and respects your value, he's going to be fine with the fact that you set a boundary with him, because him getting what he wants in that moment isn't more important than what you two are in the process of creating. He's going to be able to ground himself in the long-term potential of relationship with you more than that short-term deprivation of what he wanted in that moment, whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? So it's a really great indicator of a man's character, how he responds to the establishment of a boundary. If a guy is resentful and sarcastic and spiteful and weird, like for an extended period of time after you've established a boundary with him, chances are he's operating from a very wounded masculine space, and he may not be a man that you want to be in relationship with. Are you with me? So setting boundaries is a great filter with men, and Sean makes a great point that a lot of men feel like they did something wrong. Yeah, so in a great way for you to offset that, right? Because if you set a boundary with him when he's moving forward or trying to drive forward in something, and he goes in and you can see him kind of going to beat up about it, that's an opportunity for you to, so you always want to like reground him in the fact that you're enjoying getting to know him. You want to make him another invitation. So you say, listen, I really am looking forward to, and I think it would be really fun, right, for us to sleep together, or for us to do this, but I'm just not ready yet. Or it's important to me that we be in a safe, exclusive container before we go to that level. You see? So you're not like rejecting him like we're never going to do this, or you screwed up. You're just sort of like lovingly connecting him with the fact that you have a boundary there. Like you don't want to smack a man over the head with boundaries as much as possible. You want to kind of lovingly bring them to his attention before he smashes into them. You see what I'm saying? This is an important thing. So Elizabeth asks, do men feel when you're willing to walk away? Yeah, I think men absolutely can feel. And I think it's important that you demonstrate to them that you value yourself enough that you will walk away. And I don't think you need to threaten a man. Because you need to respect my boundary or I'm going to go. I don't necessarily mean like that. I think that, what it really comes down to is, you set a boundary, you remind him a couple times, and then you can basically just kind of sort of let him know, hey, so these boundaries are really important to me, and I made a commitment to myself that I'm only going to be in relationship with people who honor and respect my boundaries. So that's your choice. It's your choice, right? You push it back to him. You kind of put it back to him in a loving way, and you ground it in self-love. Fundamentally, that this is an act of self-love. Does that make sense? And Triss says that men really feel a lot when it comes to energy. Yeah, Triss, they do. Men are a lot more intuitive. Like if a woman looks at me like if I'm dating, or if I'm getting to know somebody and she says, hey, I'm not, I'm not ready for that yet. And I can feel it in her energy that she's serious about that, And so like you can be serious and firm in establishing a boundary with somebody without alienating them or rejecting them. But you can let them know that you're serious just in the way that you're showing up, by the eye contact. Really powerful way to let a man know that you're serious about what it is that you're saying and that it's coming from within you, is by making eye contact with him and communicating to him through that eye contact, hey, this is something that's important to me. Does that make sense? Like how I'm looking really intensely into the camera right now. You can tell this is important. Yeah, that's I think one of the ways you can let him know that you are ready to walk, and not specifically, but just through the fact that it's important to you, is by making eye contact, slowing down the tone of your voice, and really dropping in, being like, hey, it's important to me that before, I would love to be intimate with you, but before we do that, I need to feel safe, and I need to feel like we're in a committed monogamous relationship. My safety is important to you, right? Is that, can you honor that? He's gonna get it, right? Amanda says, any other crazy Texan women offended? Offended by what? Oh, do I keep on doing a Texas accent? I just spent a year in Texas, so I have a tendency to go there. Sadie says, absolutely. Good men know when they might lose you, but they need to know your boundaries. Exactly. So I think, to bring this whole thing back around, right? Boundaries are everybody's responsibility. It's your responsibility to communicate your boundaries to him and to not take it personally if he violates boundaries that he didn't know existed. Take responsibility for that. You see what I'm saying? And if he crosses a boundary that you didn't express, that's an opportunity for you to own that. So let's do this. Sherry asks, I'm 66 and I keep attracting younger men. Why are younger men attracted in older women? It's funny you say that, Sherry. I did a whole video on that that's blown up. It's now one of the most popular videos on my channel. If you're interested in why younger men like older women, check out that video. I'm speaking from experience because I'm one of them. So I'm dating an older woman and it's fantastic, and I know a lot of guys that do, right? And there's a lot of reasons why men like older women. Men like women all around the spectrum, right? So like there is no one type of woman that men are interested in, but you can, through the way that you show up, you can be magnetic to a wide spectrum of men. And if you set boundaries with men, they are going to see you as higher value. They are going to want to get to know you better if they know that you love yourself enough to put your needs and your value first. Are you with me on this? So this is super, super, super important. Yes, let's see. So Elizabeth says that this guy told me out of the blue that I know you could walk away any moment, and she did it without threatening. So Elizabeth, how did you communicate that? How did you communicate to that guy that, how did you let him know that you were willing to walk without threatening him? I'd love to hear what your experience was with that. And let's see, what other questions do we have? Last call for questions, y'all. on this. Okay. Cheap hype worldwide. I reconnected with my man after a no contact period. I find it hard that he wouldn't pick up my calls. Very protective of his phone when together. I feel insecure. How do I bring this up in a non-needy way? Okay, well, the question I guess I have for you, Cheap Hype Worldwide, is are you in an exclusive relationship with this guy? Do you want to be in an exclusive relationship with this guy? And where are you guys at with your relationship? Because without the context, it's hard to know sort of like where y'all stand. And you are more than welcome to communicate your insecurity to him in a heartfelt, loving way, if that makes sense. So, but you want to do it from a secure space. You can communicate your insecurity from a secure space. Does that make sense? I know we have, I've gone on 5 dates with a guy. I feel safe. He acknowledges my feelings, but every time after our date, he pulls away a little. Why? How do I let him know I need him to be consistent? Well, again, different people have different capacities for intimacy. So that's an important thing to recognize, is that, some men after a date, like, they need some space, right? And so it's up to you, if you want more consistent contact from him, to let him know how happy it makes you when he's consistent with you, how happy you are, how good it feels to hear from him, and how it would really mean a lot to you if you could hear from him more often. You know, throw the ball to him, give him the invitation, and then give him the space. The cycle of invitation and space is a very important dynamic in relationship that you get to harness to, you know, excite a man and get a man to, you know, keep moving forward with you. Okay, Lisa Smith says, I'm friends with my ex. How to set boundaries as friends so it's a healthy, enriching experience, or should I just say, boy? Exes can absolutely be friends as long as it's very clear. So I guess the question to you, Lisa, would be, is he trying to be more than friends with you? Because the fact that y'all have romantic history together does make transitioning into friendship a little more awkward, right? It's going to be extra important for you to set boundaries around appropriate communication, around appropriate physical contact, and around your intentions for the relationship. Because he might be thinking to himself, oh cool, we're going to be friends now, but if I just work this the right way, maybe I can get back into, you know, back into the sack with her, or whatever his goal might be, right? It's going to be important for you in the early stages of establishing friendship or wherever you're at with this guy to let him know, hey, I am only interested in being friends with you, and doing that in a positive, inviting way. Wow, I'm so grateful that I can be friends with someone who I used to date. I really cherish your connection as a friend. It means a lot to me that we can still be in each other's lives without romantic involvement, right? Like really emphasize how much you value his friendship so that he understands that, like, that's where your mind's at. Does that make sense? I think that's very important, because it can be sticky to get into a friendship with an ex. All right. Whatever is lovely. Let's see. Whatever is lovely says social media boundaries. Oh, social media boundaries. Tell me more. Tell me more about what kind of social media boundaries you're looking to set, because that's a whole other bag of nuts. Okay, Elizabeth says, I'm not sure what I did. Everything I do sends that message. He got it very quick. I'm very direct in my boundaries. I don't accept what I don't like. And I think that's so important, ladies, for you to recognize is that Elizabeth is super clear and she's super quick in communicating to a man, hey, you know, this is what I need. This is what I like. This is what I don't like, right? And it's kind of like, I hate to compare men to dogs, but like when a dog does something wrong, you only have like 15 seconds to discipline that dog, or else he's not going to be able to connect, you know, that he did anything wrong to whatever the punishment is. Like, so in the moment, being able to communicate that boundary to him is super important. So make sure that if a man violates a boundary, don't get fearful and hold off on it for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Like, let him know in the moment that this is something that you want to that you're not cool with. Be direct and be brief and be quick with him. Let's see. How should an older woman approach a man? Sean asks. How should an older woman approach a man? Honestly, I think a lot of times men discount themselves, like men, especially if it's an older woman. I know with you know, in my relationship, right? Like I didn't think that I even had a shot with the amazing woman I'm dating now, who's, you know, not a lot older than me, but she's a little older than me. And so I think a lot of times men will write themselves off and they will disqualify themselves. So it's going to be up to you as an older woman to be real, just to be direct, right? Let him know that you're interested in him romantically, because he might have already written himself off. So smile. Like, the girl I'm dating, she asked me out. You know, she asked me out, right? Which, I mean, what does that violate? Every dating law under the sun. But if she hadn't done that, we wouldn't be together. And I'm super grateful that she did, you know? So super, super important. So let's see. Last question. We are at the end of the line. Heather says, this has been informative and interesting. Thanks, Matt. Thank you, Heather. So glad to have you here. Let's see. I have another question. What about a younger girl with older men? We'll dig into that. I'm going to do a video on that. Okay, we'll do a video on that because that's a whole other bag of nuts that we can crack open. Hanan says, should I completely lean back when a man needs space, or should I check in sometimes to show that I care? I don't, unless a guy's a narcissist and you're in a no contact period with him, I understand and appreciate leaning back. I do. But I think a lot of times women err on the side of leaning back too much, and then they actually end up undermining their relationship. So I invite you to check in. You can check in, and I don't mean check in a needy and insecure way, but if you're giving a man space, you can let him know periodically, hey, I was thinking about you, hope you're having a great day. You know, you're not trying to like hound him for a date, but you can check in. Like, as a woman, remember, the masculine is looking for the feminine to set it free. So being a warm, inviting, loving force in his life. Hey, you know, like in inviting him to move, to continue to step forward and initiate and drive the relationship, that's your job. So be open, be inviting, and then give him the space to do that. So check in with him occasionally. Don't just lean back and just like expect magically that he's gonna come back around one day. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Whatever is lovely. Final question. I am not comfortable with men I am in a relationship with to like pictures of women that are overtly sexy, barely clothed. I feel insecure and compare myself to these ladies. Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. Whatever is lovely. I get it. And I think that that's a great opportunity for you to connect to your partner and let him know that from a grounded space. Right? I think that's a perfectly valid boundary, especially if you're in that relationship, and really, you know, have a breakthrough with him around that, and you know, be like, hey, so, you know, and instead of doing it as a reprimand, do it as a, hey, so, you know, I love feeling sexy with you. I love feeling like you're attracted to me. And sometimes when I see you liking and commenting on posts of like sexy women online, you know, it makes me feel that, you know, you like other women more than me, right? Or the story I make up about it. I did a whole video on feedback that I invite you to look at. You know, when I see you liking pictures of other attractive women on Facebook, the story I make up about her on Instagram, the story I make up about it is that you think they're sexier than me, you know, which leads to me feeling that, you know, you don't respect me, or that you want to be with them and not me. And it makes me feel bad about myself, and it makes me feel like unsafe with you. Right? So you want to take responsibility for these feelings. You don't want to blame him for the feelings. Be like, well, when you do this, I feel terrible, right? You don't want to blame him for your feelings. You want to take responsibility for your feelings. And also, you want him to understand that when he does this, it does have an impact on you at some level, right? So do it in a loving, informative way, and just be real with him about it and about what comes up for you around that, and you'll, you know, it should go a lot better. I mean, it's an important conversation. But guys, this has been so much fun. There's so many great questions. Elizabeth wants a live stream on jealousy. Absolutely, Elizabeth. I'm only doing an hour show. There's a million beautiful questions. I'll go through and answer some of them here after the fact. But guys, this has been so much fun. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, take a second, hit that little subscribe button, and be sure to go to masteryofconnection.com and sign up for my Love and Relationship course. It's all about connecting with yourself and other people in powerful, meaningful ways. This course we just started this week. It will transform your relationships. I guarantee it. We have 1,000 women in an amazing Facebook group. It's 4 video modules. I created all the content myself. yourself, and you get live group coaching with me twice a week for an entire month. So if you loved this conversation, Lisa's in there. She's loving being a part of the course. And if you're loving this conversation and you want more of these conversations, I do this twice a week with live video coaching in the course. So it's 4 modules all around transforming your beliefs and your connections with men and all people in your life. So come on over to masteryconnection.com and fill out an application, and it's free. It is free for you as a member of my community. So thank you for being a part of my community and for another amazing live, and I will see you next week. I'm going to do a live every week, by the way, so get used to seeing my face. All right, and hit that subscribe button if you hadn't yet. So much love to y'all as part of my tribe, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.